This morning, stalked and hunted, harrowing details the heroic efforts of surfers to save their mate from a great white as the victim is identified. Tensions flare. London protests threaten to erupt as the Black Lives Matter movement gathers steam. And the Queen's birthday honours surprise what Tony Abbott had to say about his special recognition.
This is 7 News with Angela Cox.
Good morning. The victim of a shark attack on the New South Wales North Coast has been identified. As harrowing new details emerge of the heroic efforts of his mates to save him. Rob Pedretti was surfing with a friend at Kingscliff in northern New South Wales when he was attacked. In the terrifying aftermath, the predator stalked its victims and the brave men who tried to help.
It took them about 10 minutes to get in, and at no time did the shark leave them alone. It was circling them. So it's an amazing effort on their behalf to get Rob back into the shore. We use the term heroic fairly loosely, I think, at times, but this was absolutely heroic.
For more, let's go to Tom Hartley at Kingscliff. Tom, the community there deeply shaken by this attack.
Oh, absolutely, Ange. Everyone here is just mortified that this has happened so close to home, and for this attack, which was just a bit further south, down at Salt Beach, further south in the northern New South Wales coast, people have just been in absolute disbelief that this has happened, although some are saying that it has been only a matter of time with a lot of increased shark activity in the water. But right across the northern New South Wales coast and over the border into the southern Gold Coast, where Rob Pedretti is from, the 60-year-old Tyler has been remembered on social media this morning. A lot of mates coming forward and sending their best wishes and condolences, calling him a humble, ocean-loving soul, a champion bloke, and a bloke who died doing what he loved, surfing. And he was a well-known down that end of the coast, on the Gold Coast. He was a member of the Palm Beach Board Riders Club. He'd been to Indonesia. He'd surfed all over the world. But sadly, it was here in northern New South Wales that he did lose his life yesterday. And we've spoken with a fair few locals, a fair few surfers who aren't in the water. They've been told not to, and understandably. One this morning said that he was in the water just 45 minutes before Rob was attacked.
For some reason that day, yesterday, I felt a bit eerie. I was in the water. I came in after I had my surf and got a phone call not long after that from a good friend of mine and said that there'd been a shark attack down here, which is very sad and rattling for the local community.
Tom, authorities are now hunting the predator.
Yeah, Ange, we just wrapped up a press conference just a moment ago and got an update from police and Surf Life Saving. They said that another shark was spotted just over my shoulder at Fingal Head, just about a K away earlier this morning, but they can't say whether or not that was the shark in question. And for that reason, they've actually revoked that order to kill the predator, which they did lose sight of yesterday morning. The latest information then we've got is that beaches will remain closed from the border at Duranbar right down to Pottsville. Surf Life Savers will be moving people on if they do enter the water, and they are asking for cooperation, and they're going to reassess the situation in another 24 hours as the community continues to grieve and come to terms with this absolute tragedy.
There's a lot of bait balls out off the coast. There's a lot of birds around, so it really does give us an indication that potentially there's other sharks in the area, hence our reason to continue the beach closure for 24 hours.
And Ange, Rob's friends have expressed their condolences, and it looks like they will continue to mourn, and we're expecting that there might be a gathering at either his favourite surf beach or down here at Kingscliff later in the day.
Tom Hartley, thank you. To the UK now, where tensions have flared in another day of protests. Black Lives Matter demonstrators clashed with police and tore down a statue honouring a slave trader. Sarah Greenhalgh is in London. Sarah, has the situation calmed down?
Well, the methods used by police here in the UK are so very different to what we've seen in America and other parts of Europe. At the moment, they are using this tactic called kettling, which is basically containing the protesters to this one area in Whitehall. Pretty calm for now, but there were flare-ups earlier on, clashes between protesters and police outside the Foreign Office here in Whitehall, and then shortly after that, police simply moved positions, and that was enough to set demonstrators off. They started hurling glass bottles at officers. It all started so very peacefully this afternoon, with thousands of people marching in solidarity with those in the US, starting outside the US Embassy, also protesting against racism here in the UK. And there have been demonstrations right across the country. In Bristol, demonstrators toppled a statue of a 17th century slave trader. Locals say they have wanted it gone for quite some time. So down it came, it was defaced, and then it was thrown into the river. Here in London, just up the road at Parliament Square, a memorial of Winston Churchill across the road from Parliament has also been vandalised. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has come out and labelled the behaviour that we've witnessed here this evening as lawless, reckless thuggery.
Minneapolis City Council has voted to dismantle the city's police department after the deadly arrest of George Floyd. The officer who held him down with his knee, Derek Chauvin, will make his first court appearance tomorrow. Amelia Brace is in Washington, D.C., where protests continue.
Well, for a 13th straight day, thousands of people have taken to the streets of the United States protesting the police killing of George Floyd and the Trump administration's militant approach to the unrest that's gripped cities across the country.
I can't breathe.
I can't breathe. Here in the nation's capital, activists backed up from the biggest protest yet yesterday, once again flooding the area outside the White House. The president says he's ordered the National Guard to start the process of withdrawing from Washington, D.C. now that, quote, everything is under perfect control, warning they can quickly return if needed. Curfews in most major cities have now been lifted after days of peaceful protesting.
Because we got each day better and better situation, more and more peaceful protesters coming out, better situation overall each day, fewer and fewer arrests. I made the decision to end the curfew, and honestly, I hope it's the last time we will ever need a curfew in New York City.
The situation potentially set to escalate once again in Minneapolis tomorrow when Derek Chauvin, the police officer accused of killing George Floyd, faces court. Tomorrow's court appearance will be followed by another emotional day when George Floyd is finally laid to rest in Houston. Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, will travel to Texas to meet with the Floyd family. He'll also record a video message for the funeral.
The Australian Medical Association is calling for protesters involved in the weekend's Black Lives Matter rallies across the country to self-isolate for 14 days. The marches have sparked fierce debate with fears of a second wave of coronavirus infections. Samantha Brett reports.
Well, health officials right across the country are certainly on high alert today following those mass gatherings that we saw on Saturday. 20,000 people gathered for the Black Lives Matter protest here in Sydney, 70,000 right across the country. Health officials, though, won't know if there will be a spike in COVID-19 cases for at least 2 weeks. But chief medical officers from right across Australia, they will meet today to discuss whether or not easing of restrictions should take place within the next 2 weeks or whether they should wait out that 14-day period. Meantime, New South Wales is certainly taking all this very seriously. New South Wales Police is actually looking at banning future protests during the pandemic. Anyone who attended a rally over the weekend and is experiencing those flu-like symptoms, they are being urged to get tested.
A 34-year-old man is now the third victim of a Victorian holiday house fire tragedy. A 6-year-old boy and a 33-year-old man were also killed in the blaze at Tyack, north of Melbourne, on Sunday. 4 children and 2 women remain in a critical condition at 2 Melbourne hospitals. Investigators don't believe the fire was started deliberately. A desperate search is underway across 2 states for 2 young children. An 8-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl went missing from Toowoomba in Queensland yesterday with their mother, 30-year-old Casey Allwood. Police say they are in a 1999 white Toyota Camry with Queensland registration 759 KMD. They say the trio could be headed into New South Wales. Outstanding Australians from all walks of life have been recognised in the Queen's Birthday Honours. There were a few surprises on this year's list, including a former Prime Minister.
A former Prime Minister, a volunteer surf lifesaver, a firefighter, now also a companion of the Order of Australia.
It's obviously a great honour, and yes, I'm really thrilled.
Tony Abbott recognised for his service to Parliament.
I'm very conscious of the fact that it's essentially the honour that former Prime Ministers are typically given, and No one gets to be a Prime Minister other than as part of a team, so I regard this as a team award.
Joined on the honours list by his one-time Liberal Party colleague, Bronwyn Bishop.
When I was the first woman into the Senate from New South Wales, more women have come.
Among the AO recipients, former Australian cricket captain Michael Clarke.
All I was doing was living a dream, chasing a dream.
No stranger to accolades, he's been recognised for his distinguished service to cricket. His academy now teaching the next generation.
To pass my knowledge on to young boys and girls, probably so they don't make the same mistakes that I made.
Seven boss Ryan Stokes also awarded an AO, honoured for his service to business, to mental health and to our cultural institutions as chairman of the country's National Gallery.
Collecting, preserving and making accessible our national identity, which is something I feel very strongly about, in the arts and culture.
More than 40% of the recipients this year are women, including the CSIRO's chief scientist, Dr. Kathy Foley, for 35 years with the country's leading scientific research body and helping to advance females in physics.
More importantly, looking at how more women can come in and really make a contribution.
One of the country's leading melanoma researchers, Professor Georgina Long, also receives a nod.
I really need to dedicate this recognition to all those people who have lost their lives to melanoma.
After 4 decades keeping our beaches safe, a Medal of the Order of Australia for the President of Surf Lifesaving New South Wales, George Shales. This year's list a mix of well-known names and local heroes, representing the very best of the Australian spirit. Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Still to come in 7 News, Prince Andrew back in the headlines, why he might soon have to answer questions under oath. The incredible pictures out of Florida as a destructive tornado tears through towns, and what caused a flooding emergency near Sydney Airport. Find out next. A 14-year-old driver has been charged over a stolen car crash which killed 3 girls and a boy in Townsville. The teenage boy allegedly reached speeds of 140 kilometres an hour and was the only one using a seatbelt before the smash on Sunday. He was charged with dangerous operation and unlawful use of a vehicle, as well as possessing dangerous drugs. He'll face court this month. There are reports the US Justice Department has officially requested Britain make Prince Andrew available for questioning over his links to billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The Duke of York stepped aside from royal duties earlier this year after intense scrutiny over his relationship with the now deceased financier. Prince Andrew has always strongly denied any wrongdoing, but has so far refused to be interviewed by American prosecutors. A tornado has ripped through parts of Florida. The powerful twister was caught on camera as it formed over Orlando. Roofs were ripped off homes, power lines were cut and cars were written off. There have been no reports of serious injury. The tornado was whipped up by Tropical Storm Cristobal, which has formed over the Gulf of Mexico. That tropical storm has put millions of Americans on alert for flash flooding in the southeast states of Louisiana, Mississippi and Alabama. There are predictions the cell could bring up to 250 millimetres of rain when it makes landfall tonight. Powerful winds have generated a storm surge more than a metre high in some areas. Sydney had its own flooding emergency last night, but had little to do with Mother Nature. A burst water main wreaked havoc. To Tom Saker at Mascot. Tom, a clean-up is underway.
Well, and Sydney water workers are still here this morning trying to soak up the mess that was caused by a burst water main on the corner of Gardners Road and Burke Road in Mascot last night. The water main broke around 7 p.m. last night. The torrent of water so big cars weren't able to pass through the intersection for a number of hours as Sydney Water staff frantically tried to stop the flow and fix the break. The brown water flooded an apartment block's garage, a headache for residents upstairs, but thankfully no homes were affected by the water.
I was just driving home and I noticed there was a big water thing there, and I was a bit worried, so I called the fire brigade.
Traffic is now back to normal on Gardners Road. The breakage has been fixed and the hole has been plugged, but there is still a thin layer of mud here on the ground this morning, Ange.
Next in 7 News Sport with Jackie Felgate, including a fresh injury blow for the Bombers, only days out from the AFL season relaunch, and the Titans end their long losing streak in spectacular fashion against the West Tigers. Good morning. The Titans have broken a 364-day winless streak with a last-gasp 28-23 victory over West Tigers at Suncorp Stadium. The Tigers raced out to a 12-0 lead before the Titans fought back to level 12-all at the break. A 76th-minute field goal by Benji Marshall appeared to have secured the win for the Tigers, but it was the Gold Coast who conjured up the match-winning play.
Play it again, Sammy! Almost a year to the day, the Titans have won it on the bill!
The Titans face the Rabbitohs on Saturday, who welcome back stars James Roberts and Cody Walker.
We've trained a lot together, we've played a lot together, and, culminations mean a lot, and hopefully it clicks again this weekend.
Souths have lost their last 3 games. Canberra coach Ricky Stewart accused his team of playing like children in their shock loss to Newcastle at Campbelltown Stadium. The Knights took the lead early and were never in any real danger. Edric Lee and rookie centre Bradman Best both scored doubles.
Probably the worst we've defended for 2 years. It was a very, very poor showing of commitment in defence. We played like children.
The unbeaten Knights are second on the NRL ladder. Socceroo Mitch Langerak has tested positive for coronavirus. His Japanese club, Nagoya Grampus, has confirmed. The 31-year-old goalkeeper is the second player at the J-League club to become infected. He is one of many people who've tested positive despite showing no symptoms. The league is set to resume behind closed doors on July 4 after a month-long suspension due to the pandemic. Fans of the UFC are justifiably sceptical about Conor McGregor's latest retirement. The Irish superstar has used social media to announce his exit from the fight game 3 times in the last 4 years.
I don't buy it for a second. I think Conor McGregor's trying to get you to talk about him, and you just did. What better way to get people to talk about him?
Nobody is pressuring anybody to fight. Yeah. And if Conor McGregor feels he wants to retire, you should absolutely do it.
McGregor says he's bored with the UFC and can't get excited about the sport at the moment. And footy stars from all 18 AFL clubs are getting their costumes ready for this afternoon's Big Freeze 6. The event is a fundraiser for motor neurone disease.
I had a sneaky suspicion that I might get the most votes because I think people want to see me jump in the ice bath, but it wasn't too long to plan, but we nailed it, I think.
Neil Danaher's Big Freeze with Daisy Pearce and Mick Malloy is live and free across the screens of 7 this afternoon. And it is a very special day, and I hear that Toby Green has got a costume to look out for. Oh, OK, we'll watch for that. OK, thanks, Jack. Next in 7's Morning News, the National Weather Forecast with David Brown. In breaking news, the federal government will end its emergency coronavirus funding scheme for childcare in just over a month. On July 12, parents will have to pay fees from July 13, with the government deciding to withdraw its subsidy. JobKeeper payments for the childcare sector will end on July 20. We will have more on 7 News throughout the day. Let's get a check of the weather forecast now with 7 News meteorologist David Brown. How's it looking, Brownie?
Yes, good morning, Angela. I must say, look, it's a beautiful day around most of the country. In fact, let's go straight to the weather wall. We're going to fly into Brisbane. First of all, look at that. Sunshine, forecast top 22 degrees. Well, that's already arrived. As we have a look at Sydney, it's clear skies across the harbour at the moment. The odd coastal shower is likely later this afternoon. Today's top, 17 degrees. Melbourne, it's cold and clear. In fact, it was frosty in the eastern suburbs this morning. Today's top around 13 degrees. At the moment in the wind, it feels like 9. And as we fly into the city of churches, clear skies in Adelaide and a forecast maximum around 14 degrees. Why have we got all this settled weather? As we take a look at the satellite, this is why. Massive high that's parked there just south of Adelaide. It's dominating the southern states at the moment. We've got this trough sitting off the coast. This is the system we're expecting to meander towards the coast and maybe trigger the odd shower or two over coastal areas of Sydney later today. Upstream, well, we've got a weak trough approaching the southwest corner of WA. That'll have little, if any, impact over the next 24 hours. But as the airstream tends southeasterly, you'll start to see some isolated showers impacting parts of the New South Wales, well, seaboard. Most of that activity unfolding tomorrow. So let's have a look at the forecast. You'll notice in Sydney we're expecting a few passing showers, around 19 degrees, clear in Brisbane 23, Melbourne another frosty start, clear skies 15 and sunshine for Perth and 23 degrees. That's the latest weather. More at 4, Ange.
Thank you, Brownie. And that is 7 News to Now. We'll keep you up to date throughout the day. I'm Angela Cox. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great day.